The Amped EV podcast is sponsored by Autel Energy. Visit autelenergy.com for more information.
Hello and welcome back to the Amped EV podcast. My name is David Sickles. I am the editor for The Buzz.
And my name is Nadine Batat, and I'm the editor of Tech Shop. What's up, David?
Hey, Nadine. How are you?
I am amped to be back.
Oh, nice. Hey, we have a really cool guest in here today. But before
Yes.
I introduce who it is, I want you to kind of picture a scenario for
Okay.
me. So close your eyes.
All right.
Imagine this. It is the not so distant future. You are driving in your EV.
Oh, nice.
You are on one of America's highways.
Okay.
You are going coast to coast, and you don't have to worry about charging.
Wow. Sounds like heaven.
You could, well, a little slice of it anyway. The reason is because there happens to be wireless charging embedded into the road that you're driving over top. So, every few miles you're going over this strip
Wow.
that is wirelessly charging your car as you are driving. What do you think about that?
That's really cool. I'm excited to learn more about this.
I think you're going to enjoy.
Let's get started.
Let's get to the interview. We are talking with Jeremy McCool. He is the founder and CEO of a company called HEVO.
Let's do it.
Jeremy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about HEVO and why you think it's important to be in the wireless charging space?
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Wireless EV charging, as it's already been doing for mobile phones, is going to do the same thing for cars. It's going to make it seamless, easy, and simple to charge your car. Today, so many people are reporting user experience problems. Well, this is the solve. Also, because we're working directly with fleets, they need wireless charging because they need to solve for how do they charge their vehicles effectively and efficiently every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And wireless charging just makes things much, much, much more efficient all around the board. So lots to discuss here today and looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I know, I have spoken to fleets, and one of the reasons that some fleets cite as being a little hesitant to get into the EV space is because they're worried that, their driver's going to come back and they've got all these things going on and, maybe they forget to plug in and then the next day, all of a sudden their entire schedule is off because they don't have the range that they thought they were going to have. So it makes a lot of sense.
No, you're absolutely right. We hear from fleet managers all the time that they're having drivers arrive back, forgetting to charge. They may have OSHA safety standard requirements, not having tethered cords laying around, that they have to, think about now, what are they going to do with all these cords? But also on top of that, we tend to forget that there is union labor requirements and restrictions. And one of those things is there are unions out there that restrict people from being able to plug in the cars. And those drivers are not allowed to do that. All this results in extra cost. And what we see is that it can result in $100,000 per year charging attendant for every 30 to 50 vehicles, maybe maximum 100 vehicles of management. So there's this extra cost, this extra burden. There's some key challenges there. And we know from these fleets and these fleet managers that wireless charging is going to give them that route forward on how to electrify their fleet.
You make some really good points, Jeremy. Other than, of course, being wireless, what are some of the big differences between wired and wireless charging? For example, could wireless potentially charge an EV faster or charge more efficiently than wired charging?
Wonderful question. So in terms of the efficiency, what we see right now is that wireless charging is somewhere around 90 to 95% efficiency from the grid to the battery. And when you compare that to plug-in charging from grid to the battery of the vehicle, you're going to see something in the range of 91, 92%, upwards of 96, 97%. So we're only off by somewhere around 1 to 2% maximum of efficiency. And if you think about that from the point of view of the person that's charging their car, what it means is that on a day-to-day usage case, they're only going to see a cost difference there in a few pennies per day of cost. It's not that unique or relevant at this point. And also in terms of the power capability. You asked that question. So we now have technology that can charge vehicles in the 300 plus kilowatt range. What that means is we would be able to charge a car roughly 1,000 miles per 1 hour charged, which is exactly the max amount that you're able to get approximately with any other fast charging, supercharging kind of network. And so the limitations at this point are really on the battery side of the technology. But the one thing that wireless does better than anything else in terms of accelerating EV adoption is that it can provide the ability for drivers to drive and charge at the same time. And this year, with our partnership with Oak Ridge National Labs, because HEVO is the partner, the commercial partner for ORNL, this year we will be demonstrating in the Detroit area highway speed test with 200 kilowatt wireless dynamic charging. So vehicles will be driving at highway speed, collecting charge as it goes. It'll be a short run just to showcase and demonstrate what we can do. But from there, we do anticipate and expect that there'll be future projects that will be announced that will then go forward with things like new vehicles being tested out on highway speed tracks and other locations as well. So we're starting to channel towards a inevitable future, which is that everybody would be able to just drive. And that is what we think is going to take to accelerate EV adoption at the mass adoption type of level. Early adopters, different story. They're willing to deal with some of the core challenges and things that go on with technology adoption. Mass adopters, they will not.
That is really interesting. Now, just for clarity, when you say dynamic charging, that refers to when you are driving, you are also charging at the same time over, whatever strip that is. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So imagine it like this. You're driving on a tollway, and that tollway for every 5 to 8 miles has a strip in it, and it's a 1 mile long strip. While you're traveling at highway speed, 60, 70 miles per hour, you're going to pick up an additional in the range of 8 to 10 miles of range. You quite literally would never have to stop the charge. But when we think about it from a major infrastructure point of view, and obviously what I'm talking about here today with this dynamic and road charging is a lot of infrastructure requirements. But say we took I-40 as an example, and you put one lane with wireless charging going from east to west and from west to east. The cost to do so would be less than $1 billion. And that is remarkable because in order to do that same stretch with plug-in charging, highway speed, level, supercharging, DC fast chargers, you're going to have to put in billions of dollars worth of charging equipment to achieve the same. So what we're talking about here is not only efficiency around the time management of people not having to stop and charge, but the economic efficiency of being able to put in infrastructure while we're in the midst of going through a massive infrastructure overhaul and doing that the right way that it can accelerate EV adoption and frankly accelerate renewable adoption too, because there's no reason why those wireless powered roads should not be powered by solar or wind or other forms of alternative energy as well.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, that would certainly be a game changer if, range was no longer an issue, if you essentially have infinite range. Can you tell me, for a layman like myself, how exactly is this charging the vehicle? Do you need to install hardware on your vehicle in order for it to work, or is there some software that goes into it, or is it one of those things where it just kind of knows, hey, this is a lithium-ion battery, it needs to get charged?
Great question. So at the top of that is, first, we know that there is a requirement to a vehicle integration side, right? Just like your phones and any other wireless charge devices, you must have a vehicle side ready device that can receive the power. So the primary pad that is a wireless pad, as you could imagine, a souped up version of a wireless pad for a mobile phone charger, to a degree like that, just much more robust for infrastructure and grid connectivity, certifications, and all these things that we had to go through. We are UL certified. We are SAE qualified. And those are the two designations for both the grid side and both that and the vehicle side. So what I mean is that you will need to have a vehicle device And that can either be aftermarket retrofitted, which we typically don't want to do because it starts to play into things like voided warranties, and people don't want to obviously go that route, or it's natively built in. And over the course of the last several months, we've announced a handful of partnerships with automakers such as Lightning eMotors and Stellantis that we are developing now technology that they will hopefully soon be able to start offering to their customers natively built in. And ultimately, that's what everybody needs. Once you have wireless in the car, there's no perception out there that if people have the availability of wireless, they won't do wireless. They're gonna want to do wireless. So yes, to answer your question directly, you do need to have a piece of equipment in the car. There's another piece of equipment that's charging the vehicle wirelessly with a souped-up version of a pad, kind of like a mobile phone. And there is a software in between that communicates between both the vehicle side, the grid side, and also to the cloud, so that we know that vehicle is charging at that location.
Very cool. In regard to that Stellantis partnership you mentioned, are you able to say at this time what model year vehicles you expect that to be entwined with?
So we do know that there's going to be a handful of different platforms that we will model with. And some of those that have already been announced is an example of the Pacifica PHEV. So that is an example. But I would tell you also that there's a couple of other brands within the Stellantis family, which includes Peugeot and Fiat, that have gone through the form of electrification for different models of vehicles. And we're working towards something there that could potentially play for people around the world. I'm going to give you a user story. And one of the biggest fleets in the world is actually located in the UK. And they happen to focus specifically on accessibility, or in other words, disabled drivers that have upper and lower mobility problems. Well, they have a requirement. They have to fully electrify their fleet in the next 7 to 10 years by government requirements. Well, they can't really do that reasonably because people that are their drivers cannot pick up these cords. So they have to have wireless charging. And then there's a subset within that there's only certain types of vehicles that they're allowed to offer. And so thankfully, within the Stellantis family of automotive different vehicle platforms, there are a handful that would look like they could meet that mark. So yes, there's quite a few different opportunities that we're working with Stellantis, and some that will be hopefully announced very soon. But we're very excited to have this partnership in place and already working towards something.
That's very cool.
Definitely sounds very exciting. And just to clarify, can virtually any EV be wirelessly charged using one of your wireless charging pads, or does it depend on the make and model of the vehicle?
Great question. If we're doing aftermarket retrofits, there's a few kinds of vehicles that we have been doing in the past. Again, that's not our route going forward because now we do have these automotive partnerships in place. So any electric car can be wirelessly enabled. And it's not really that significant to go through that process in terms of the development to get that vehicle readied up with everything connected to it. It's quite literally a 1 hour or less job if we know what we're dealing with in terms of a retrofit. However, we want to make sure that the vehicle is charging in the correct manner, communicating in the correct manner. So that is where the development time takes place. And that could be anywhere from weeks to months of work. We've had to go through processes where we had 2 weeks to integrate a brand new vehicle platform. We've been able to do that in the past. So we can move fast, especially when an automaker needs us to. But typically you would see something in the range of like a 3 to 6 month development cycle before that vehicle is fully involved with a wireless charging system. And then from there, being able to take it into the next steps, demonstrating it and getting on to a potential and eventually to a supplier.
Very interesting. And to piggyback off of that question, can a heavy-duty truck be wirelessly charged just as easily as a passenger car?
It can. And in fact, the majority of vehicles that we're dealing with today in our mix of fleet vehicles are going to be somewhere in the range of, Class 2 plus to Class 4. And let me state what that is. Those are delivery vehicles and vans that you see roaming the streets anywhere around the world. And it's up to the size of a big box truck or a shuttle bus. So one of the first projects out the gate that HEVO has announced for 2023 is a program called the Clean Transit Accessibility Program, or CTAP, which is out of New York State. It's been funded by the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, also known as NYSERDA. And it's also got additional financing and backing from major banks, major investment banks around the world. So what's behind that? First is that it's taking into account that there's hundreds of thousands of people that are using what is known as dollar vans to get around the outer borough areas of New York City every single day, because they do not have accessibility to mass transit. And as you can imagine, these are thousands of vehicles that are creating emission issues in already dense emission zones. Mm-hmm. So we have a wonderful partnership with a company called Dollar Ride, who is transitioning their fleet over to electric. And so the Dollar Ride team and HEVO, plus a few others, came together, won this proposal and this project from the state of New York. And we're going to be going through a process to electrify about 100 plus shuttles with them that are also going to be wirelessly charging at dedicated locations around the outer borough area of the city. And so overnight, they're going to wirelessly charge. And during the daytime, these are hybrid charging locations. So we are offering both wired plug-in and wireless together in one solution. So during the daytime, people will be able to plug in if they have a regular vehicle, pull up and get a hamburger and fries or something like that at that location. And then at nighttime, those vehicles are going to charge wirelessly overnight.
Very, very interesting. So if I am a fleet owner and let's say I decide that this is the solution for me and I want to install, maybe half a dozen of your solution, how do you help me determine how many I might need and how many of my trucks should be, maybe retrofitted with this? I mean, do you help us figure out, okay, you need to work this out 6 months ahead of time? How does that whole process work?
It's a great question, and I appreciate that one because it's directly what we're working through right now. Project planning and management is part of the process of this. So HEVO has 3 different types of customer and partnerships in place to be able to do projects around the world. Those are, first and foremost, the automakers. Those are partners that we have developed relationships with and are in the process of putting our wireless charging systems and solutions onto their vehicles along with our software. Secondly, is that the network providers, existing EV charging station developers and network providers that are already out there. And then thirdly, the actual channel partners that are responsible for the installation, operations, and maintenance, or the O&M. So that third channel, the channel partners that are responsible for the installation, operations, and maintenance, they go out, they do an assessment with that fleet customer or whoever that customer might be, understand what their charging needs are going to be, and then from that process, we go through a whole planning of that project together to ensure that delivery times and the quality of product and all those things are there for those customers. Now, I would add one more last wrinkle to this point, which is that we have this availability around the world. We have channel partners and existing network partners in the UK, Europe, Australia, Korea, and we're starting to expand into South America over the course of the next 12 to 18 months as well. So we are not just an American-focused company, and that's frankly what we have been focused on for the last many years. We've been able, over the last year, we've been able to bring on companies and organizations and partners from around the world.
Congratulations, that's huge.
Very nice.
Thank you for that.
Now, when it comes to audiences, which of your audiences has been most receptive to your wireless charging pads, like your consumers, fleets, municipalities?
First and foremost, HEVO started because of fleet-orientated type of business models. I was meeting with people at Fresh Direct, Frito-Lay, Pepsi-Cola, these kinds of organizations, even back in 2009, 2010, had started to switch over to some form of electric vehicle delivery systems. And the problem that they were already having was plug-in charging. They either had drivers not remembering the plug-in charge or accidentally backing over the cords and destroying those cords, or some other universal issue that all fleets have experienced as they try to electrify their fleets. So fleets have been by far and large the easiest answer in terms of accelerating the adoption of wireless charging. And that's where we see the majority of our customers today. So when we think of our customers, end users, aka off-takers, what we say that is that's the fleet. Now consumers have been reaching out to us for a decade, asking how they can get their hands on it. And we've gone through a process in the last year and some change of evaluating what that could be through a couple of different means. One is that HEVO has been very successful with crowdfunding. We've raised almost $5 million in the last year or so off of multiple crowdfunding platforms, that being Republic and WeFunder. And we currently have actually an existing crowdfunding platform that's operational today that people can invest into on WeFunder. But what's really important to that, not only is it the funding side, the level of testimony that we're getting from the retail investor, people that drive electric cars today that say, I have an electric car, this is what I need, this is what's missing, and I need it now. And so they're investing quite literally with their money, and then they're helping us to understand, what is really behind it. And the testimonies have been remarkable, absolutely remarkable. I would say every third or fourth investment that we get an incredible story or some kind of testimony about why this matters to that person, because they are possibly either an electric vehicle driver or they want to be, and they need the wireless charging. So that's thousands of investors and thousands of people that now have given us those kinds of testimonies. And we're thankful and grateful to them all for all those reasons. So we've been being reached out to, we've been going to trade shows and talking with consumers, and without a doubt, they've made their voice very clear to us. They want the wireless charging and they want it now. And they verbatim have been stating, this is what I need to go electric. They don't want to touch that cord. They don't want to pull off to the side a supercharger or some kind of DC fast charger off the side of a highway when it's pouring rain outside and connect major voltage to their car. There's a lot of problems with that type of interaction. So to answer the question directly, consumers want it today, and fleets have to have it right now.
Gotcha. And, you mentioned the rain. Is there any, how does your solution change how things might be perceived in terms of weather? I mean, how well does this kind of installation hold up to, torrential rain or things like that, as compared to maybe your standard level 2 charging station you might find out on the road?
We've had to go through what is known as Underwriters Laboratory Testing Certification, or UL certification. It is very broad in stroke and also very deep in responsibility and capability of the technology. So we've had to go through significant environmental testing and certification for rain, snow, direct pressure, contact, also not to mention salt, lubricants, all kinds of different liquids and solvents, just like any other piece of hardware we'd have to go through of any kind of sort within the same space. So this is highly protected systems that are also hermetic. That means that they're waterproofed to a requirement that must be met and beyond. And so we've gone through all kinds of different challenges in terms of project deployments. Today, we have systems out in professional projects with some of our partners around the world where it's raining 300 days out of the year. And these systems are constantly underwater because they're in high flood areas to a degree. So we've had to witness that firsthand, many years, and iterating on that technology to make sure that it meets the requirements and to get to a place where we can, without a doubt, tell our customers, this is a highly safe technology. Even if you're charging and there's snow on it or ice on it or rain is out there, there is no voltage. There's nothing like that that's being penetrated through the system. This is all electromagnetic. It's charging through a frequency, just like any other kind of frequency. That this frequency happens to provide power wirelessly.
Got it. Got it. And so if there's like, half an inch of snow on top of it, does that affect the efficiency at all in any way?
No, because alternating current is the methodology of the transfer. And so there's alternating current that is on every single major line of electricity or even your little plugs. The difference in this is that we've coiled it up into a certain type of coil size and geometry that helps it to have exceptional high efficiency that penetrates through any form of natural substance. With one exception. If you put a giant piece of metal on it, it's not going to transfer because it's quite literally blocking it, just like you'd imagine anything that would block another frequency enabling object like that. So
totally makes sense.
Without containerizing it and creating a Faraday kind of solution or a situation there, I should say, there's nothing there that would block it from, to charge through any kind of element, whatever it might be, ice, snow, water, mud, doesn't matter.
Got it.
With the same level of efficiency.
Sure. And then how about maintenance? If I'm a fleet and I put a bunch of these in where my vehicles are parking every night, how do you expect me to maintain them throughout the year?
Well, that's the great news about wireless. There's not a lot of maintenance to the story because these pads, first and foremost, are optional to how you actually deploy it and install it. You can either do a surface mount, you can do a flush mount like a manhole cover, or you can actually put it under rock, gravel, sand, even tarmac and cement and roadways. So you've got different options to how you implement it. And the requirement there is very simple. Don't take it off the street with, a snowplow or something like that. But minus something very destructive like that, this isn't an equipment that is going to need to be maintenance every single year. The actual problem with the technology is that it may last much longer than the vehicle does. So the reality is that this has been built with the capability to have 150,000 hours of usage. That's a lot of charging.
Yeah.
Before you would ever need to see potential replacement of any form of the product. And even in that case, it may just be a few parts that need to be replaced. The majority of the equipment, the majority of the parts in this, everything is off the shelf that we have designed and developed together. But the majority of it is polymer, polycarb, aluminum, and copper wiring with some ferromagnetic material that helps to create a form beam to have high efficiency. These are very natural products, that are easily found around the world. So supply chain issues and things that people have had to suffer through in the past many years, these aren't those kinds of products that have those problems.
Very interesting. Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a pleasure. This is a really, really cool technology that you are really pushing forth here, and I really look forward to seeing where you go with it.
Absolutely.
Hey, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to be on here with you both. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care.
That was a lot to take in.
It was.
But a lot of exciting stuff.
Definitely. Really interesting stuff. And I feel like this is going to get a lot of people excited and interested.
I mean, he said he had, $5 million in crowdfunding from consumers alone?
Yeah.
We're not even talking about the fleets here. So.
Right. Just the fact that it's, not a lot of maintenance required. It's seamless, fast, easy charging, I think is, a turn on for a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, he's got those partnerships that he mentioned, with Stellantis and,
Right.
trying to work with fleets and, these buses and things like that.
Right.
That's really exciting for him. And then, of course, the dynamic wireless charging. I mean, just imagine that being something where, whether you're a consumer or you're a fleet, you don't have to worry about your range in your EV.
That was insane to me. I thought that was really cool. And I think definitely going to be something big in the future, because I think charging is one of the biggest deterrents for people in purchasing an EV. So I think this was, a great conversation, and definitely something that these consumers have something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I have a lot of questions that I don't know that can be answered right now. Like, for example, let's say we're installing these all throughout America's highways or on one particular highway,
Right.
whatever it might be. How does that work as far as, who's getting the bill for
Right.
that? Is it the municipality
Yeah.
or, as the charging is happening? I mean, there are a lot of things in there that kind of need to be worked out. But that being said, it could be a very interesting future for EV owners if this kind of thing should take off.
Definitely. Thanks for having me on this show. And, I think this conversation today was really exciting. I love being on the show. It's a lot of fun.
Hey, you can join anytime, Nadine. I'm amped to have you here, as always.
Awesome, David. Thank you again. Seriously.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Take care.
See ya.